For today's random project, let us make this tiny necronomicon action figure. There are two things I have been wanting to do for a really long time: a necronomicon book from Evil Dead 2 and custom toys. So I decided to kinda complete both things at once. I've been making replicas of the pages within the many necronomicons from Evil Dead for about 10 years now. Here on my website you can download them all. But I have never made an actual physical replica of the Evil Dead 2 necronomicon, which is my favorite. The cover is usually made out of silicone rubber or some other material which is 100% not available in my stupid country, so I've been thinking of replacement materials for quite some time now, without much success. In any case, the first step to making a full-size prop would be to start making a good sculpt. So making a small version would be a good first step regardless. Regarding custom toys, last year I spent several weeks falling down the custom toy rabbit hole on Pinterest and watching and re-watching the craftsman videos until I inevitably decided to start doing my own. I was very inspired by custom action figures like the ones on Redfall Things and Kingdom of Spiders, and especially by the ones from Sucklord, which I thought were very funny and relatively easy to make compared to the other ones, so I decided to use the action figure aesthetic. That way I could practice a bit of sculpting, and as a bonus I could draw some cool art for the back card. The reference. As mentioned before, the Evil Dead 2 Necronomicon is by far my favorite version. There are several different covers from all movies and other materials, but the droopy mouth one is the best, so that was my reference. I started by printing a reference image in the final size to start sculpting the covers. I used Sculpting for this. My Sculpting had been forgotten in a drawer for several years. Thankfully, it's rather easier to resuscitate it with a little bit of mineral oils. I've been told by several Evil Dead scholars that the back of this book is not supposed to have an ear, but I drew it once on some other project and I thought it was hilarious and disturbing, so I will add ears to any book with a face from now on. Here I am baking both covers. They probably came out a bit too brown, but as long as it's not completely burned, everything's okay, since they will be anyway painted later. After that, I use a little piece of 5mm MDF as the middle of the book, and then use a bit more Sculpting around that to sculpt the spine and the pages of the book. Making the mold. I really hate making molds. It is really difficult and it requires a lot of planning and patience, which I usually don't have. So I wanted to make this one really well from the beginning, so instead of just using whatever cardboard was at hand to make the base, I actually made a nice box using CaseMaker, where you can put any dimensions and thickness of material and get a very convenient vector file to cut. This way I could have the perfect size and I could use the same box for other book molds in the future. Resin time! Nothing special here, just a bit of acrylic paint in the resin mix to give it a little bit of base color. In case the weathering does not perfectly fill each nook and cranny, you still have the dark base paint so it hides the errors. Painting. From the start I thought of making several copies of this action figure to sell, so I wanted the fastest possible process and shortest list of steps to follow. Initially, I thought of simply making the resin the correct color from the book from the start and simply add some dark wash later and be done with it. But after a couple of tests, the color of the book ended up either too transparent or there was so much paint in the mix that the resin was starting to have problems curing. So I ended up painting the old-fashioned way. I really enjoy painting, so I didn't mind, and it ended up way better this way. I use a layer of acrylic paints for the base colors and then a coat of glossy clear coat to seal that. When that was all dry, I used a patina liquid to make it look old, which darkened everything and make it look like the movie prop, which, depending on your favorite frame from the movie, can go from really dark brown to almost black. Packing. Once the figure was ready, I did the card and packing. As I said before, I have been lurking on the custom toy boards for several months, so I was quite excited to make my own card backs. I loosely traced one of the frames from the movie and then painted it in a non-too-realistic style. Since I wanted to make other toys, I wanted to keep all of them similar on the same style. And since I already had all the pages drawn and ready to go, I used a couple of them to decorate the background. Now, to create the physical paper card, my initial plan was to print it on sticker photo paper and then put that on top of cardboard. But since I did my pixel art minis video last week, I've kept on using wood varnish to cover heavy stock paper, and I still think it looks great and it gives a really nice texture, so I use that same technique here. The blisters are another thing that's impossible to find where I live. And there are certainly not many public vacuum formers where I can just show up and make a couple of tiny blisters, so again I had to improvise. So listen to this. Turns out, pastry shops sometimes use transparent plastic sheets around their cakes so they can keep their shape. Conveniently, this plastic, and it has to be like the food grade plastic, even if the material is transparent, it can actually be cut with a diode laser. So I grabbed Illustrator and made myself some origami blisters which turned out pretty good. And with that, my Necronomicon action figure is ready to go. I hope I will add several other books to this collection, like the Gravity Falls Diary, which is one of the few books I did made a real-size functional prop. I would eventually really like to make other Necronomicons so I have like a full movie collection, but I guess only time will tell. And that's it for now. Next time, I swear, I promise we will talk about Dungeons & Dragons. I have some hot takes about why rules and rule sets will be worthless very soon. See you in the future.